Welcome to Save Your Photos Month. My name is Faith Van Wart, and my company is Adventures with Photos. And today I'm going to talk about creating a recipe memory photo book. But before we get started, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a certified photo manager and I live in Toronto, Canada. I love helping people with their photos and having them tell their stories. One of the best ways I have found to do this is by creating photo books. So let's get started. What is a recipe memory photo book? It's a collection of recipes, photos, stories, and memories. Anything that centers around food, especially recipes that have special meaning for you or your family and can help you to share stories and memories of the past with future generations. It's kind of like a recipe. There are some main ingredients and some optional ingredients. So, why create this type of book? First, it's a great way to collect everything in one place. It's also a great way of passing down family recipes and an easy way to share them with others. It can help make valuable connections between the past, present, and future generations and help you explore the social history of your family. You can learn what type of foods previous generations ate and make the connection to the foods you eat today. Since tastes and smells are great memory triggers, it might be fun to make a recipe from someone of a previous generation. This will give you an opportunity to remember that person, talk about them, and pass that information down to your children and your grandchildren. How often have you caught a whiff of something that transported you back in time? Or looked at a picture that had a plate of food from your childhood and you can still remember the taste and smell of it? So, what goes into a recipe memory photo book? That's really up to you. However, the main ingredient would be recipes. You may choose to add photos, maybe some stories or memories, but like any good recipe, the more options you incorporate, the more enriched in depth of flavor your book will have. So let's talk a little bit about our main ingredient, recipes. Often recipes are kept in recipe boxes or they might be in a recipe book. In either case, you might also find other things tucked away, such as recipes torn from a newspaper or cut out of a magazine, pieces of paper with a recipe written on it, or a napkin. In the case of one of my clients, her grandmother handwrote all her recipes on a large writing pad, so really they can come in all different forms. If you're fortunate enough to have inherited a recipe box or book from another generation, you may find a treasure trove of history in that box, not to mention just the handwriting from a previous generation, which can be a treasure in itself. If a recipe has been cut out from a newspaper or magazine, look to see if it has a date or the name of the publication. That may give you a little clue as to when they may have made that recipe. Here's an example of a recipe that was cut from a magazine. My client said she had forgotten about this clipping until she came across it in her mother's recipe box. She said as a young girl she had always wanted a Barbie doll cake for her birthday. She remembers finding this recipe in a magazine and cutting it out and giving it to her mother in hopes that one day her mother would make the cake for her. Unfortunately, her mother never made the cake, but she did keep the clipping. And although my client never had a Barbie doll birthday cake, it still brought her joy to see the picture again, and so she included it in her book. Recipe boxes or books. Whether your recipes are stored in a box or a book, make sure to take a picture of it and include it in your book. Also, Jot down any memories you might have about it, such as you remember your mother looking through the box to find your favorite cookie recipe, or you remember it always sitting on the counter when you came home from school. Whatever the case, jot down a couple of sentences and add them to your book. So once you've gathered all your recipes, it's time to go through them and decide which ones you want to include in your book. You may want to choose a few extra just in case. It's easier to eliminate some recipes rather than having to find a few more to add at a later date. Then it will be time to scan your recipes. But before you do, make sure you give each card a gentle wipe with a dry cloth. This will remove any dust on the card along with anything else that may be stuck on it. Make sure to check the back of the card for any writing and scan it too. You may find that some of the paper has yellowed, especially newspaper, while others may have some well-used spots on them. You will have to decide once you scan them whether you're okay with the color and the spots, or if you would prefer to clean them up in a program like Photoshop. It's completely up to you. Now it's time to look for some photos. You may be surprised how many pictures you have related to food, or those times of celebration when a particular recipe was enjoyed. For example, one of my clients had her mother's recipe for Nanaimo bars. My client remembers them being called expensive squares because in the 70s they were expensive to make and they were only made for special occasions. Her mother used to make them for the ladies in her bridge club, and it was her turn when it was her turn to make the or take the dessert. My client remembers it being such a treat when her mother made them. So in her recipe book, we matched a picture of the ladies from the bridge club to the Nanaimo bar recipe. So when you're looking for photos, you may want to include a picture of an occasion when a particular food was served or a picture of the person who made it. Maybe just a photo from that time period. Really, the possibilities are endless, and it's whatever connects for you. As you look through your recipes and photos, memories and stories will begin to surface. Take a little time to jot down some of those memories and stories. You can always take more time later to elaborate on them. If you are doing this as a family project, you may want to share the recipes and photos with family members and ask them what they remember about that particular food. They may also have some other photos to add. The next step will be to decide how you want to lay out your book. Do you want to categorize your recipes into soups, salads, desserts, etc.? Or maybe you prefer to do them chronologically or alphabetically. It's really up to you, and there is no right or wrong way, just your way. Finding templates and getting inspiration. Canva is a great resource for templates and has thousands to choose from. There are both free and paid templates on the site. No matter which ones you choose, you will likely have to modify it to suit your needs. Canva is a pretty easy program to use and has lots of tutorials to help you. Pinterest is also a great place to look for some ideas and inspiration. You may even find some templates you can use. You may want to check with the company where you plan to have your book printed to see if they have a template you might like to use. And if you don't want to do it yourself, you can always contact the photo managers to find a pro who specializes in photo books and can help you put a book together. Some will be able to help you with scanning your recipes and photos, cleaning them up, and creating a layout for you. Now that you have all the pieces, it's time to begin assembling your book. You will likely have to play around with the layout until you find one that you like the best. The most important part is to enjoy the process and have fun. Hopefully, you'll be inspired to make some of the recipes you put in your book. When the book is finished, I'm sure you'll be glad you completed it, and future generations will thank you. So, before I leave you today, I would like to invite you to subscribe to my blog, The Story Behind the Photo. You can simply send an email to blog@adventureswithphotos.ca. And please note that you can unsubscribe at any time.